People often ask me why I have put so much energy into producing these shows. Why have I spent so many years trying to produce 50s rock and roll music? Well, I gotta tell you, fish gotta swim, birds gotta fly, and I gotta sing. It's just about that simple. I love the music. I grew up with it in the 50s, and it's been a challenge to me to try to be able to produce really high quality music of this type. When I began, I couldn't play guitar. I could always sing, but I've had to learn the instruments, and it's been fun. It's been tough. Hasn't always been easy. But I can tell you this: there's nothing in this world, not sex, not money, not anything, that's as big a thrill as to be able to stand on a stage and know that you're really putting it out, to know that you're doing the job the way it should be done. And of course, when you do that, the audience knows it too. And that's the best part of the whole thing, the relationship between the performer and the audience. Now, I want to introduce you to our musical family, as they say. Some of the guys and gals who've worked with us and helped to create the Bobby Moore Show. First of all, one of the best lead guitar players you'll find anywhere on this earth, Jim Thigpen. Now, Jim has a feel for early rock and roll. Like me, he grew up with it, and he knows how to play it. There's something almost spiritual in the relationship between the singer and the lead guitar player. It's a combination of coordination, it's rivalry. At times it's almost a love-hate thing. But when it's right, man, it's right. And the audience can feel it. My friend, Jim Thigpen. Now this next fella is Maestro Darrell Stevens. Now we call him Maestro because he's the musical authority in the group. Darrell spent a lifetime teaching music, organizing bands. He knows his stuff. If I have a question about a chord or a piece of music or anything I can't figure out, I call Darrell. Any time, any day, any night. And he's got the answer. If he don't know the answer, he'll make one up. Well, Darrell plays at least half a dozen instruments. He plays the guitar, the piano, the violin, the harmonica, you name it, and he plays it. When I was in high school, I always wanted to play in the school band. But the school didn't have a band, so I guess I didn't play in it. Well, Darrell was hired fresh out of college from Cotton Valley, Louisiana, to teach music at our little school. And as far as I know, he was the first full-time music teacher the school ever had. He organized an a cappella choir for the school, and I sang in it. I still remember all those good old gospel songs we used to sing. When I graduated, I lost track of Darrell, but then we got back together decades later, and he wound up playing guitar in the group for the Bobby Moore Show. A great guy if there ever was one. Now, the lady in the drums is Diane Bauer Davis. Diane comes from Rockwall, Texas. And she's a big-time insurance executive who loves playing the drums. And not only can she play the drums like you wouldn't believe, but she's just an all-around great person. She used to drive over 200 miles just to appear on our show. And she usually brought a sack full of something good to eat, too. I especially remember that. Definitely my kind of gal. She's beautiful, she's talented, and, guys, she's married. By the way, she and her husband traveled all the way from Texas to Memphis to be married at Graceland. Her husband is a real great Elvis fan. Now, this next picture is historic. The man at the piano is my first cousin, John Roberts. John used to play, and I'd sing with him when I was a kid. He'd come over to our house and play gospel songs on my mother's old piano or church organ. And it was great. Man, those were the happy days for me. John played for me on my first television appearance. He played at the very first show I ever did professionally. In fact, that's where this picture was made, in Athens, Texas. I don't remember the date. This next pretty lady is Wanda Jennings. I'm really proud of her. I am so proud of her. She won't admit it, but I taught her how to play the guitar. Well, sort of. Well, maybe I should say I was the inspiration for her learning to play the guitar. Wanda has appeared with us on countless shows, and now she's writing songs as well as playing. She just finished her first gospel single, and she writes poetry. Cheyenne Smith has got to be one of the most talented, hard-working country western singers on the scene today. She first sang on my show when she was 11 years old. The first song I ever heard her sing was, "I Want to Be a Cowboy Sweetheart." I went home singing it myself that night. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the best song she ever sang. She's a self-taught yodeler. Cheyenne's mother, Vicki, and lots of other good people too, have really worked long and hard to promote Cheyenne's career. She's already had several major contracts, and I predict the sky's the limit for Cheyenne Smith. Now, nobody in this business makes it alone, and I'm certainly no exception to that rule. You get a lot of help from a lot of people, and whenever you start listing people, you get in trouble because you always leave out the most important. But I'm not going to make that mistake. I'll say this, if I had to name the one person who was most responsible for me getting started in music, it would be Viney Hendricks. Viney and her husband had an antique shop on the East Texas State Fairgrounds, right next door to the Mayfair Auditorium where Elvis used to appear. I did shows at Viney's place all the time, and I did a lot of rehearsing there too. Viney Hendricks was my number one fan without a doubt. In her eyes, I could do no wrong where music was concerned, and she was my audience when I didn't have an audience. Sometimes she was the only one. She was my friend, and she's the reason I'm singing today. She's not with us anymore, and I miss her. I miss her. Viney Hendricks. Some people write songs for different reasons, you know. When I started singing, I never really intended to write songs. But sometimes, though, things just hit you in a certain way and you feel compelled to express your feelings. I guess that's why artists paint and writers write. Anyway, I met this very lovely young woman who had a name as beautiful as she was, and I kind of fell in love with her name, Amber Rose. Now, everybody who knows anything about this song thinks I fell in love with the girl, but that's not really the way it happened. It was the name that got to me. Not that she's not a beautiful girl, certainly she is, but the name is what got me. And so I wrote my first song, and I recorded it, Amber Rose. Amber Rose is a very simple song. It's a little on the sad side, but it's beautiful. The recording has only one guitar, and Darrell Stevens, Maestro Darrell Stevens, plays the violin. By the way, numbered first edition copies are still available if anybody wants one. Get in touch with me. The next frame is indeed Amber Rose with a guitar. And as you can see, she is certainly a source of inspiration for the song of the same name. A great high-voiced singer, high soprano, is one of the several things you need to make the kind of sound I like. And like lead guitar players, there are lots of them out there, but very, very few with all the qualifications necessary. Marlena Jennings is one of those people. I've searched for years and years for that perfect combination of qualities, and to this date, I have found it in only one person, Marlena Jennings. But she's like a butterfly. She made a few appearances, and she disappeared from view. She remains with us on sound recordings and videotapes, but she's not forgotten. She's still around, she's just out of touch with us. Marlena is the most talented female vocalist that I have ever known. Now, no matter how good your singers and musicians are, the show's success, the success of the whole thing, depends on the sound man. And here he is, doing his thing. We've been very fortunate to have some very, very good sound technicians. When we were doing the shows regularly, as we did for about 3 years, at the Historic Woman's Building, I'd sometimes make an entrance from the back of the auditorium. Well, here I come. Down the stairs, make a left, make a right. Well, it's too late to back out now. I'm in the audience. Sometimes we have unexpected guests on the show. In this case, it was Houston radio executive and disc jockey, Tall Paul Wildchild Williams. In my opinion, the greatest rock and roll disc jockey of all time. Paul passed away some time ago, but he will live in our memories forever and ever. Now, this next shot is one of my very first gospel albums. We've done 3 so far. Bobby Moore Sings Gospel 1, Bobby Moore Sings Gospel 2, and Bobby Moore Sings Gospel 3. Our audiences usually have people of all ages, and that's the way we like it. That's what we want. And sometimes kids give me drawings and notes. I keep them all. And here's a really artistic one that pretty much says it all. I love you. Isn't that sweet? Well, I met Terry Teen, a former Hollywood performer, best known for his Halloween novelty tune, The Curse of the Hearse, several years ago. And we had the opportunity to appear on several shows together. I had the greatest respect for Terry. He was a great performer. He was a good person. Unfortunately, Terry was killed in a traffic accident not long ago, and we all miss him. Well, here I am in Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm at a local music store to see the great guitarist Doyle Dykes. If you haven't had a chance to hear Doyle Dykes, do it. Man, this guy can play. Well, Doyle was making an appearance at the music store, and I was there. And guess who just happened to be in the crowd? That's right, Elvis's lead guitar player, the one and only James Burton. And that's James on the left and me smiling real big on the right. Got his autograph, too. James Burton. I've always loved steam locomotives. My daddy was an engineer, and I managed to do Mystery Train on just about every show. Well, this is me visiting one of my friends, an old steam locomotive. I love them, I love them, I love them, I love them. Train, train. God, I love that song. Do I like Elvis? You might say that. People ask me if I'm an Elvis impersonator. I say no. I'm just a man who dyes his hair and wears funny clothes, and that about sums it up. You can't tell that from reading the newspaper stories, though. I never saw Elvis in person, but years later, I had the chance to sing on that same stage. Elvis was gone, but his presence was still in that old Mayfair auditorium. As far as I'm concerned, Elvis's best music was recorded before his mother died. There was something about those early hits that just could never be duplicated, not by Elvis, not by anyone. When his mother died, something in Elvis died. As a matter of fact, the same thing happened to me. My mother died in a house fire in 1985, and a part of me went with her. That event inspired me to produce an hour-long CD, which has since been widely distributed. The title of it is, Does God Exist? And I'd like to give you a copy of it if you want it. To get the free CD, all you have to do is ask for it. Just send me an email. Say, send me the CD, and tell us where to send it, and we'll send it to you absolutely free of cost to you as soon as possible and as supplies permit. So send your email to bobbymooresings@yahoo.com. That address again is bobbymooresings@yahoo.com. Just say, send me the CD,